Hello, everybody. Shooty here. This is take three for this video. Take one and two are complete disasters. I was trying to film this review, your boy Zach style, and my phone does not have enough empty memory on it to record more than 7 minutes. So I have to do this with PlayStation editing. How exciting. Uh, Shout out to you, boy Zach. He is a big inspiration for my the way I try to run my YouTube channel. The full channel, his full channel name is you Comics Matter with you, your boy Zach. And he mainly talks about just comic industry as a whole. It's hard to really quantify in just a couple sentences, but he's kind of like the first one who went in and on the whole woke politics being in comic books and stuff like that. Mainly in Marvel and DC. I don't know if he's ever actually done any IDW stuff. It'd be interesting to see him do some IDW stuff, but I don't think he ever has done any. With that out of the way, though, let's get on to the actual meat of the review. I was gonna talk about IDW's comics issue by issue, but I don't. It's kind of hard to, because some of the issues are just so not offensive that it's kind of hard to sit there and try to talk about it for more than a minute. Case in point, issue one of IDW Sonic is it's fine. The art is fine. The story is fine. It's reintroducing Sonic into comics after Archie lost the license. So it's hard to go in on a comic that's so blasé. It's, I shouldn't say boring. It's because it is boring, but it's not dreadfully boring. It's just you look at it and you're you know what? This is what I would expect a Sonic comic to be. So it's hard to there wasn't anything super critical to talk about in issue one. So I decided to jump to the probably one of the most contentious arcs in IDW, and that's the Metal Virus arc. Specifically, I decided I wanted to jump to issue 19, which is the one of it's basically the only issue of the Zombot arc that Shadow shows up in, and he is uh like kind of a part of. And then after that, he's basically not in the arc anymore. Um, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is the cover art for the comic, and the cover art is not. It's actually pretty good for the most part. Um, there, the it is it's got this neat thing with Sonic. He's just bouncing around and stuff like that on the cover. And I dig that. I think it's really neat. Um, the it's kind of comedically bad in a sense because basically Sonic has the metal virus on him, but he's not he doesn't have him in his grasp because Sonic's running around sprinting around, and I guess it makes the metal virus fall off his body or something like that. Um, but it's just kind of funny because it's he's running ahead of people who are trying to escape the Zombot horde. And so it's just kind of he's dragging the fucking infection along with him, and he's just smiling and having a good time. And then you can see Shadows right next to him, just super pissed about the whole situation. It's a good cover art wise. It's just story wise, it's kind of comedically kind of bad. Um, the next thing I'm going to talk about real quick, and I'll show you. It's the layout of the pages. Issue 19, like the art is like it's good, but it's also sterile. Like it's competently drawn, the colors look good, characters look good and stuff like that. There's no complaints in that regard, but it's like the style of it is extremely sterile. Um, and the best way I can explain it is like on page one, it's like you have tons of flat shots of people running and screaming and stuff like that. Well, terrifying stuff and all that, obviously. But it's like they're flat shots. It's a lot of this like paneled pages. Um, and that's like the thing about the art in it is it's very like sterile panel oriented type of art that it's you see it in like Sunday comics, but like in actual comic books, it's not like spectacular. I brought a couple examples from. I randomly selected an Archie uh, issue. I shouldn't say randomly. I dug around a little bit in my Archie issues to not like cherry pick per se, but to like find like an example of what I mean, like what's a good comic book art. Because Archie, I like Archie, but it's not perfect. I will agree with that. There's certain criticisms that can be brought to Archie Sonic, but the art in Archie Sonic is got significantly more style than IDW Sonic. So like case in point, like I issue 285 of Archie Sonic, and I just picked out like four random pages, and you could look at how like the art is set up, like how the panels are. They're not just like straight panels; they're kind of here and there. Some of them are angled in specific ways, and then the art itself, like, will sometimes bleed out of a panel to like add emphasis to an action, or even like some pages, like page one, it's basically a two-panel page. Like it's one giant panel that's an establishing shot, and then a second panel which kind of establishes what the threat is of the book. So it's good. It's good art. It's just got style to it. It's competently drawn, and this is post reboot Archie Sonic. Like, the Sonic community has general like there's a general distaste. I feel like from a lot of people in the Sonic community for uh, the reboot Archie Sonic, which is basically after like the Crossworlds event between Mega Man and Sonic is when reboot Sonic starts, and it's not like uh, so it's not this isn't like an issue from like way back. This is like fairly recent issue um of Archie Sonic, and the art is just got way more style to it, and especially if you compare it to again the IDW stuff, and it's not bad. It's all competently drawn. It's the colors look great. It's just the style of it is so dull. Um, I don't know how many different ways I could say the style is dull, but I've done it right there. It's also a big part of the reason why the style is dull is because um, and this is a theory I have. I don't have definitive proof. I just have the word of other like people who actually work in the comic book industry. I've watched Ethan Van Sciver on not all caps comics. What is his channel called again? I can't remember what the fuck his channel is called again. Um, oh, Comic Book Secrets. That's what his YouTube channel is called. His YouTube channel is called Your Comic Book Comic Book Secrets with Ethan Van Sciver. Um, and Ethan Van Sciver is a uh, veteran in the comic book industry. He's worked for DC Comics. He's written and drawn for Green Lantern and for the Flash. And then he's also did a little bit of work for Marvel too. I think he's the guy who he reinvented or invented X-38, who I think is like supposed to be like a female version of Wolverine or something like that. Um, I could be wrong about that last part. I know he's worked on her comics though. Uh, and he's done just a ton of other stuff too. He has reviewed comic books on his YouTube channel during live streams before, and he's got a lot of help, like neat insights on comics, like the comic book art and stuff like that. And one of the things he pointed out was that a lot of comic book artists nowadays use 3D assets to make like backgrounds or objects. So, a case in point in this instance, if I go back to page 1 of issue 19, if you look at like this background or this skyline of if you look at the skyline for this top panel, you'll see like the how much level of detail there is in the background of the panel. You can even like scroll down to I'll put up the full page right here, but you can look at like the buildings in the background. Like you can see all the windows and stuff like that. Now it's like an impressive level of detail. The problem is it's not completely hand drawn detail. It's either traced or they finagled the computer or whatever the program. I don't know the name of the program, but basically you drop in 3D assets and then you trace over them to get the art. And that's how you get all these windows and stuff like that. Typically, not all the time. I don't want to say with 100% certainty that's how they drew this comic, but it's kind of clear that, like, okay, they just might have used some 3D assets. And the reason why they would be using 3D assets is because it gives them the opportunity to make a very quick background, and then they can focus on the foreground elements. And the big reason why they would do this is essentially you're releasing monthly comics. You need to get the art done in as quick a fashion as possible and still have the results look readable. So it's likely that the way these people did it was with 3D assets in most panels. I think some of them you can look at them and the buildings might be hand drawn, but like case in point, I'll put up this page that I'm talking about right here. It's the buildings in like one of the panels kind of doesn't look like it's like completely 3D asset-ish. But like if you look at like the background behind Shadow and Omega and a few of these panels, you notice there's no buildings behind them and stuff like that. That's typically like a technique comic book artists do to save time, is to just not put a background in. Or if you put something in the background, you usually put less detail, like you draw less detail onto the object. I'll do another example is if you kind of look at like the Zombots in the background, you'll notice that the Zombots have less and less detail the further away from the camera they get. And again, this is because you're trying to save time, and the way you save time is you don't put in that detail. Your audience is primarily going to be looking at Shadow, who's in the foreground. They're not going to be looking at Zombot number 347, who's standing way off in the background, just looking like a Zombot or zombie, whatever you want to say in this particular moment. So the art is like, it's competently drawn, but it's sterile and it makes it bland. And it's also kind of becoming obvious that they're not like putting in the same level of effort into the comics that you got out of like Archie, for instance. There's like many different reasons why this could be. I'm not going to jump in and speculate on it. It's just like it's kind of apparent, and there's actually other instances of this. I will dig through and comb through a few different issues here and there and try to pull them out so I can show you in another video. But I want to like stop talking about the art because I think I've said all I could say about the art. Um, the next thing though I want to uh, talk about is the actual story in this particular issue. I'm not going to talk about the Zombat arc technically as a whole. I'm just going to talk about the story in this issue in particular. So Shadow, basically, he makes his way on scene by driving a truck in, and he comes out and he's immediately hostile towards Sonic. He's blaming Sonic for all this because in a previous issue, Eggman was like not evil, and Shadow had an opportunity to kill him, but Sonic's like no because murder's wrong. And then Eggman became evil again, and so Shadow's kind of basically like, "This is your fault. If you would have let me kill Eggman, blah 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 blah." So Sonic and Shadow are having a pissing match over this in the middle of a zombie invasion. Very cool. Um, and it highlights one of the problems. And I'll put up this page. It's this page that ends with the very infamous panel. But Sonic's like staving off this virus by running really fast. So like he's standing here and just talking to Shadow while the infection's getting worse on him, and it's just the dumbest thing ever because it's like you got to keep running, dude. Stop talking. But it's like that's how they write Sonic now. Is they write him like a motor mouth. He just keeps talking and talking. Oh, some creep called Starline made him evil again. Nobody could have seen that coming. Yo, I'm dealing with it too. I'm infected. See? Okay, I'm gonna rewrite this dialogue right here, right now, so it sounds like somebody who is trying to be urgent. Starlight Starline made Eggman evil again. Who would have saw that coming? And I'm infected too. See, that's all he needs to say. He's trying to get sentences out as fast as possible. He's not trying to sit here like I am and ramble and talk and talk and talk about bullshit that nobody cares about. Um, and then when he's leaving, Sonic's like, uh, don't let the Zombots touch you. Shadow's like, yeah, I know. And then fucking Sonic's like, it happens. If it happens, you should be fast enough to run it off like me. And then it Shadow just says the stupidest fucking thing. Cowards run, I win. Okay. All right. Ow, the edge. This is like this is basically this one panel characterizes how Ian Flynn sees Shadow. Is he's just edgy all the time, and it's dumb because it just makes Shadow look like an idiot. Because a few panels later, uh he's fighting the Zombots, and he Shadow's like, the Doctor's metal virus can't infect the ultimate life form, which is reasonable to I assume. I Yes and no. So I have a major problem with this. Um, I have a major problem with this. The Doctor's metal virus can't infect the ultimate life form line. He doesn't know that, and they also don't establish why he would know that per se. I guess I don't need like exposition for it. It's just like why how could you assume that you could not get infected by this virus? And then Shadow starts literally just punching everything as much as possible, and he gets infected. And this is where this is the part that really I think infuriates most people with this, is that Shadow gets infected and he knows from Sonic that he could just run to stave off the metal virus. And instead of doing that, Shadow just doubles down on the punching. And eventually they cut to Shadow getting sucked into the Zombat horde. And that's uh, and that just basically sums up Shadow's presence in the entirety of the Zombat arc. Now, I'm gonna I kind of agree with some people that Ian Flynn does not like writing Shadow. I can't say for certain if that's true or not, but it feels like that because it's like he just got rid of this character that a lot of people care about as quick as possible. And it's a character that could have done more in the arc. Um, and I'm not saying Shadow should never succumb to his infection. Far from it. In fact, it would have been more interesting to see Shadow slowly succumb to his infection rather than immediately he gets dragged in by the horde. They wanted to do this shot of Shadow crying out as the zombots pull him in under. They wanted to do a stereotypical zombie thing, like the thing you always see in zombie movies, where the guy's like reaching out like, "Oh my god," and he's getting eaten. They wanted to do that, but it's like instead of like building up towards that and earning it, they just kill Shadow right away. And like I can forgive, for instance, Shadow assuming that the ultimate life form, would be immune to these zombots. I totally understand that. It's like there's nothing to like establish in the IDW comics. In fact, I'm gonna say even in the games, there's not really much in there that establishes that Shadow is like immune to literally every disease ever. I think they do say he is immune to diseases and stuff like that, but like they mention it like once, and it's not something that gets brought back up again. So it's a lot to fucking like assume that the reader's gonna have that knowledge going in, and then on top of that, it's a lot to assume for the character to say, "Yeah, I'm immune to this particular virus also." But as like I said, it's forgivable because at least the line of logic is there. It just becomes stupid because when he realizes he's not immune, instead of instead of just like, okay, I got to take my time with fighting them, he just doubles down like a fucking buffoon, and it makes Shadow look like an idiot. Like instead of like, you know, how he's kind of typically presented in the games, being like basically he's smart like Sonic, but he's also like quiet. That's he's quiet and brooding. He's not an idiot, and it's just kind of frustrating because it's like you're gonna take a character again that a lot of people like, and instead of like fleshing out his character in this arc more, and maybe you could even potentially add in a character arc. There's a character arc for Shadow in this. Maybe Shadow coming to realize he's not actually immune to everything and all that makes him feel more vulnerable to a certain extent. I'm not saying you make Shadow a pussy in the later comics, but maybe he's much more cautious about certain things. Maybe he comes out of this with a phobia of the metal virus or something like that. Not that that would ever carry over to the games because Sega does not give two shits about these comic books, but could have very easily wrote that in a manner that would have allowed for good, decent storytelling, and also would have just made more sense. You just would have got more out of the character, but they wanted to kill the character off as quickly as possible. It's just frustrating that because I don't think they actually cared about like. It feels like they don't actually even care about that Shadow in particular in this arc. It feels like they just wanted to get rid of him as fast as possible, and that's why I kind of agree with people. I'm not 100% certain if it's true if Ian does not like writing Shadow or not, but that's what it felt like. There's not much else I could say about this issue. It's not great storytelling mixed with very like again sterile art. And I think it's because of the kind of story they're also trying to tell too. Like zombies and Sonic is a weird story arc. I dig it. I dig the idea, but the execution like kind of falls flat on its face to a certain extent. It is disappointing that they couldn't like put more effort into this, but I'm on the fence of whether or not this is like, okay, is Ian a bad writer? Or is IDW rushing this as fast as possible? A lot of people try to give IDW like way too much benefit of the doubt on this. And I'm talking about the company. They're like, oh, they plan the comics out for years and months in advance. And it's like these don't feel like stories that are planned for years and months in advance. They feel like stories that are probably only have like a couple months ahead on, but that's about it. I don't think they have years in advance on these. Maybe a couple months, maybe less than that. And then like IDW editorial, they're definitely garbage at their job. They definitely do not like actually look at these comics and be like, okay, here's some issues I think you need to clean up. They just kind of like they just kind of let everything pass. And it might be because, I mean, some people say it's the Sega mandates. I'm gonna like again, I'm gonna hem and haw over that. I don't think the Sega mandates are so strenuous that you can't tell an interesting story. I just think that they're not like I don't think they care about like actually telling a story with the Sega stuff. I think they're more focused on their side characters, and I'll get into that when I talk about other issues. But when it comes to this particular issue, it's a flop because it it's just a vehicle to get rid of Shadow as fast as possible, and that's about it. There's nothing super significant that happens in this comic beyond like a few characters getting infected and they have to evacuate a city. I'm gonna eat my words. Hold on. Yeah, that's it. I just skimmed the comic real quick to make sure there wasn't something major I was missing. No, it is literally just a vehicle to get Shadow infected as fast as possible in this arc. They could have done a lot more with his character, I feel like. I think it would have been neat because you could have had a character like eventually Shadow should become infected because it amps up the threat, but it gives you like a mirror of like what Sonic's going through. Like Sonic would be he's keeping up with it, stuff like that, and then maybe Shadow can't keep up with it for some reason. Maybe his infection is way worse than Sonic's was, or maybe I don't know. Maybe his ultimate life form blood is not that strong compared to like fighting this particular virus compared to other viruses or something like that. Just you could have had something in there where Shadow you got to watch Shadow slowly turn, and that's like usually a hallmark in zombie related media is you have a character who gets infected and then they slowly turn over time. And they could have totally pulled that off with Shadow. And then on top of that, when he's infected, should be like a stronger threat than a normal zombot. But as far as I can tell, he doesn't run faster than other zombots. He runs just as fast. Which, okay, he's a mindless zombie. He doesn't know how to use his air shoes. I hate that they call them air shoes. I'm calling them rocket skates. So he doesn't know how to use his rocket skates. It's like any number of things they could have done to make this more interesting. I'm not here to like say they should throw out the story completely because I'm not for that. I like when you can take a story and explore it, but if the execution sucks balls, then the whole thing falls apart. And that's kind of where my stance on this whole thing is. And the whole Zombot arc feels like this too. I think I'll pull up a couple more issues of it later. But for now, I wanted to just do this particular issue in the Zombot arc. Just to highlight again, like there is this overwhelming mediocrity in the like overall way that this is presented. And it's kind of just how I feel about IDW in general, but I digress. I'm gonna stop talking now. I keep going. I might do another issue maybe next week. We'll see how I feel about it. And I want to do some Archie stuff, but Archie's a little tougher because there isn't like a solid way to read the Archie comics digitally. I have a bunch of them physical, but I have gaps in my collection, and I want to be able to read the gaps so I can better judge the story, and I also want to be able to talk about that stuff. But it's tough because there is like reading Archie is like online. Somebody gave me a link to a website that has all of Archie's stuff on it, but it literally the website keeps like every time you change which page you're reading, it boots you to a new website where you can where it's like advertising you weird bullshit, and I'm afraid of getting a virus every time I'm on that website, so I try to stay away from it. Um, but that's about the gist of it. There's no real there's no real other way I could put any of this. I think I've said all I could say about all of it. I'm gonna end the video now. Take